This is Campus Currency, and we are beginning with part 1 in our series of 9 videos on completing the FAFSA application process. In this video, we're going to talk about the documents you need to collect before you begin the FAFSA process and where you go to fill out the FAFSA application. So there are a lot of documents that you need to have on hand before you begin this process. It's just going to make things go a lot smoother and you'll be able to get through this FAFSA much quicker. So it's good to have these documents in hand before you begin the process altogether. First thing you want to have is your Social Security card. This might sound a little obvious to most people, but there are certain populations of students who might have different names on their Social Security card than what they legally go by in their daily lives. And the thing is, the FAFSA application is checked against the Social Security Administration database, and so the name, date of birth, and Social Security number have to match exactly what is on your Social Security card. So as I mentioned, certain populations, and I'm thinking about certain immigrant populations that may come to the United States that use a different name in their daily lives. I'm also thinking about women that may have recently gotten divorced or recently gotten married that may not have changed their Social Security card yet. You need to have it match exactly what's on your Social Security card in order for your application to not go into a reject status, which will cause a delay on the processing end. The next thing you want to have, because we're completing the 2021-2022 FAFSA application, which is for the fall semester of 2021, spring semester 2022, or if you're on a trimester or quarter semesters, it's going to be the academic year that runs from July 1st, 2021 to June 30, 2022. So you're using your 2019 IRS 1040 federal tax return, including all of the schedules and worksheets. Now, when we say schedules and worksheets, we're talking about, for instance, if you have a Schedule C because you have a small business that you operate, you may need that information. Schedule E if you have, say, rental property or you have a larger business such as a partnership or an S Corp. You're also going to need Schedules 1, 2, or 3, which has other taxable and untaxed information on the worksheets. So you'll just want to have all that federal tax information available and on hand. Next thing you'll need is your 2019 W-2s from employment if you had them, because there will be some information on the W-2 besides your wages that you may need to report. And then you want to have documentation, or at least an estimate of what your checking and savings account balances are and how much cash you have on hand. The documentation of the value of any non-retirement assets. So we're talking about non-retirement brokerage accounts that have stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, or if you have money market accounts. There's the UGMA, UTMA, which are the students' college savings plan. So that's basically the Uniform Gift to Minors Act or the Uniform Transfer of Minors Act. There's the Coverdell accounts, and then the 529 plan accounts. You want those balances available as well. Also, any net value of any secondary real estate. So you're going to see in the FAFSA application several times where they refer to the net value. So what they're saying is that if you had a secondary property, basically you want to estimate what's the value if you were to sell that property today, and then subtract out any mortgage debt associated with that property. That's your net value. You also want to have documentation of the net value of your business or investment farm only if your business has more than 100 full-time or full-time equivalent employees, and in cases if you may own a portion of a farm through a cooperative. If you do not live on the farm, then you do need to report that farm value. And once again, when we're talking about net value, let's say, for instance, you are a mechanic and you own a garage. If you were to sell the building, the garage itself, all the machinery inside, the computers, any product that you still have on hand, what is the value of all of that? And then you would subtract out any debts associated with the business, such as maybe a mortgage on the property, maybe you have outstanding business loans to pay for the machinery, etc. So you're subtracting that from the value of the sale of all of those items. And then in addition to all these things, you're also going to need any documentation of any other untaxed income. So for instance, child support is not taxed, and that needs to be reported. Any housing, food, or other living allowances paid to members of the military or clergy. So for instance, some clergy members actually get a housing stipend, and that amount may show up on the W-2, and it may not. But you do need to report that either way. Any veterans' non-education benefits need to be reported. Any workers' compensation, disability benefits, any untaxed foreign income, etc. So all of these things are going to have to be reported on the FAFSA application, so you'll want to have all these things on hand. And that's why I say you should have your FSA ID already completed. There were 2 videos previously that talk about how to fill out and complete the FSA ID, which is your electronic signature. This way, when you log into the FAFSA, you're already logging in with that FSA ID, and you'll be ready to go and begin completing the application. You're also going to want to have a place to write down all this information, pen or paper, a Word doc, or even put it in your phone. There's going to be a lot of information that you're going to want to store and keep, because you're going to be filling out this FAFSA application every year that you're in college, and so some of these things you'll have to refer to. So it's just kind of handy to have either a folder, whether it's a paper folder or an actual folder on your desktop for your computer, where you store all the financial aid information so you can refer back to it. So then you're going to go to studentaid.gov. So you want to make sure that you're not going to studentaid.com or FAFSA.com. Those are other pay websites or scam websites. This is the actual Federal Department of Education website where you complete the FAFSA application. So if you've already done your FSA ID, you can just go right to the login screen. Otherwise, you will have to create your account, and it will start with asking you to complete the FSA ID. And once you get in there, this is the first section you'll get to in the login, and you, the student, this is your information. So it's very important for families to understand that the FAFSA application belongs to the student, not to the parent. Even though in most cases a parent will be completing information on the FAFSA actually belongs to the student. So you just want to make sure, if you select the student button, that you're putting in the student's FSA ID username, or you can use the email address or mobile phone number you signed up with the FSA ID, and then the FSA ID password. So there's the username and then the password. And then there's just a disclaimer that you're going to have to accept, that basically acknowledging that you're accessing a U.S. federal government computer system, and so any malicious behavior could result in fines or jail time. So you'll just hit accept on that. And then in this last section, we're going to talk about the FAFSA that you're completing is the 2021-22 FAFSA, and this runs from July 1st of 2021 to June 30th of 2022. So the reason they leave both applications up available, so you could also complete the current year FAFSA, is that if you're taking a summer course, every school may have summer courses treated in a different fashion. So for instance, they use terminology called trailer and a header. So your school may use the summer as a trailer, which is the end of the 2020-2021 FAFSA application year, or they may use it as a header to the beginning of the 2021-2022 FAFSA. So you'll want to check with your school if you are taking summer courses, or even depending on the type of academic calendar that the school has. So if you're on a trimester, a quarter system, or even a module system where maybe classes start every 8 weeks, you'll want to check to ensure that you're completing the correct application. You're definitely going to complete the 21-22 FAFSA, but as I said, if you're doing summer courses before you start in the fall, you may also need to do the 2020-2021 FAFSA. Then you're going to create a save key, which is basically just another set of passwords that can be between 4 and 8 characters long, and you can use a combination of numbers and uppercase or lowercase letters. And that basically the save key is just so that if you get into the FAFSA and you get interrupted for some reason and you need to log out, as long as you've been saving the application as you go along, they'll ask for this save key when you log back in, and so all the information that you had already entered will be saved, and it'll take you to the next screen that you would have come up on. And so this is another reason why you want to have a pen and paper or something to write down all of this information. And then finally, with the introduction, they're just going to go through a few things such as how you can get help completing your FAFSA, and essentially you're going to see a help icon that looks like this next to almost every single question on the FAFSA, and that'll elaborate a little bit deeper into the questions if you're not sure what they are asking. You can find out how many steps it takes to complete the FAFSA, how long it takes. If you have all of your information available like we discussed earlier, the process should take you less than 30 minutes altogether. And then if you can save your FAFSA, and if you can't finish it, yes, you'll be allowed to save it, and like I just mentioned, with the save key you'll be able to log back in at any time and start up where you left off before. The documents needed to complete the FAFSA is what we talked about in the beginning of this video. And then they'll talk about signing the FAFSA, and there are a couple options besides the FSA ID, and we'll get into that later. And then they talk about FAFSA, web security, and privacy. And that's the end of this first video. Hopefully you liked this video, and if you did, please subscribe to the channel, and we are going to get into the next section in the next video in part 2 about the actual student demographics of the FAFSA application. Thank you very much.